Hey everyone, I'm Pen and this is a pen. Today I want to show you how I made this dress. Kind of not really a tutorial because I kind of winged the whole thing. So yeah, it's part of my Lottie cosplay that I'm going to be wearing to Fan Expo on Saturday, and I'm really excited. Again, this is not a tutorial. I made it up as I went along and also forgot to keep filming about halfway through. So near the end, you'll see a jump to like, oh yeah, I also already did this and this and this. That's because I forgot to film. I hope you enjoy. Like, subscribe, and yeah. So this cosplay is really exciting because the group and I are doing a couple of the girls from Yellow Jackets, and we're going to be doing their Doomcoming looks, and we're going to be meeting Ella Purnell, and I'm so excited. These bed sheets are my roommate's, and she wasn't using them anymore, and they happen to be perfect for this cosplay. I started by measuring the pieces for my skirt of the dress, and it's 2 layers. It's tiered, and it has like a little ruffle in the middle. So the top layer I did about 50 inches by 17 inches, and the bottom layer I did 1.5 times that by 17 inches as well. I really wanted it to be long because hers goes about mid-calf, just below knee length. I'm trying to make this as accurate as possible, even though I don't really know what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm going to be doing Lottie. One of my friends is going to be doing Natalie. One is going to be doing Jackie. And one of them is going to be doing Van. And I'm so excited. We're going to be so fucking cute. It's going to be so cute. Next, I'm ironing the fabric because I should have done this before I cut it, but it was a giant bed sheet and I didn't want to do that. I also didn't have to worry about hemming it because I used the hem that was already on the bed sheet. But here you can see that I am ironing down about 1 inch on the top of my bottom tier. This is so that I can create the little ruffle that's on the outside in between the top and the bottom tier. I'm going to link the tutorial that I've watched for this because it's probably so much more helpful than I can be, because this was my first time doing this technique and I honestly do not know what I was doing. The next thing you want to do is gather that bottom tier so that you can fit it into the top tier. Obviously, because the top tier is smaller, you need to gather up the bottom tier so that it'll fit. But I had a kitty on my lap who wanted attention and was distracting me. To gather something, you set your machine to the longest straight stitch that it will allow, and you just sew down the whole thing. And then you can take one of the 2 threads, either the top or the bobbin. Usually the bobbin works best. And then you start gathering it. Oh, also don't sew back and forth. Don't knot it. Leave it open, leave it long, and then you start gathering it up so that it'll fit into wherever you want it to fit. For some reason, pinning this was so incredibly difficult. I don't understand why it was so confusing to me how to fit these together. Again, I'm going to link the video that I watched because it's so much more helpful than me, and honestly, I should have rewatched it when I was having so much trouble, but like for some reason, my brain could not compute how I was supposed to pin these together if I wanted that little ruffle to show up on the outside. It took so much time, and I do not understand why my brain was having such a hard time with it. I did have cute kitties coming and keeping me company and making sure I was doing a good job at my work. You know, they're just the inspectors making sure that I'm doing everything correctly, which I probably wasn't, so I should have gotten written up, but they're nice. They're really nice to me actually. So, I didn't actually have to worry about that. I started pinning it in the middle so that on either side I could make sure that it fit and that the gathers were spread how I wanted them to be spread out. It makes sense when you think about it, but for some reason I don't know if I'm explaining how you're supposed to do this correctly. Like, I don't think I'm explaining it well. Next, you want to sew it down. I took my time doing this because sometimes fabric will bunch up and then get caught and you won't notice that you've now sewn parts of the fabric that you don't want to be sewing. So I really took my time and made sure to move all the fabric that I didn't want to accidentally get caught out of the way. Otherwise, you have to go and you have to seam rip it out and you have to start over again, and it's really frustrating. But I sewed those 2 pieces together, and came out looking actually kind of how I wanted it to look. And I don't know why I didn't film this, but I decided to sew up the side seam. I tried to do a French seam. It was my first time attempting a French seam and it didn't turn out so bad. I just think it was silly because I didn't really need to do it because so many other seams are going to be raw edges. But I pressed it. Look up how to do a French seam because I don't think I can explain it well. But you basically sew wrong sides together and then you flip it and you sew right sides together, encasing the other seam allowance in, if that makes sense. So here you can see that I'm now sewing it right sides together. It's confusing, and maybe like look up an actual tutorial other than me, amateur sewist on the internet, who's throwing together a Lottie cosplay. That was the bodice pattern that I used, only I didn't realize, but I cut out the pattern and I cut it out on the smallest size, which I thought I was, but apparently I'm not. So I did the bodice pieces and then I put it on and it didn't fit, and I was really frustrated because I'd already cut out the pattern piece, which means that I would have to figure out how to make it bigger without being able to cut out the new pattern piece at the right size and then cut out my fabric. So I had a coffee break, I was frustrated, and I was tired. I figured it out. I figured out how to make it bigger. It was fine. I was just annoyed at myself, and I really, really needed a cup of coffee. Like, I really needed a cup of coffee. Figured it out, like I said, and I resewed the darts on the front panels. I was able to save the back piece of the bodice because that fit nicely and the side seam hit where I wanted the side seam to hit with it. So I didn't have to recut that out, but I did have to recut out the bodice pieces, and it was a little frustrating because I initially was using, again, the already hemmed piece of the bed sheet, and I wanted to use that by the buttons and the buttonholes by that seam so that I wouldn't have to do it, but I was out of space when I had to recut it, so I ended up just doing that for one piece. I could only fit one of the pattern pieces on there, and then I used the larger giant hem that's at the top of the bed sheet. So next I sewed it together, and for some reason I didn't show myself cutting out the sleeves or any of the other pattern pieces. From here on out, for some reason, I didn't show myself cutting anything, but I cut out the sleeves and I attached the sleeves as well, you're about to see. So that I also was able to use the hemmed edge already for the sleeves so that I didn't have to hem the sleeves because they're short sleeves. And then I tried it on and it actually fit nicely. It was really good. So I moved on to trying to gather the skirt so that it would fit into the bodice. Now this was also really frustrating. And at a certain point, I put it down for the night and I came back to it a couple days later because for some reason I couldn't get it to fit nicely and it was too long. And whenever I sewed it, it kept like catching different parts that I didn't want to sew into the seam, and it was really, really frustrating. So I put it down and I came back to it on Sunday, and then I figured it out and it was fine. And I was able to cut it to be the actual length I wanted it to be. I added a channel for the tie. I sewed the little tie piece. It was really annoying because it didn't want to turn inside out, but I sewed it and I added a little channel and I added a collar. She has like a little ruffly collar. I put it in wrong. It's fine. You're not going to see it mostly because it'll be like covered by my hair. But for the channel, for the tie, I specifically sewed in the ditch of the seam because the dress looks like it's all one piece when you look at different photos from the show. So I really wanted to make it look like that. I added buttonholes with the buttonhole foot on the sewing machine as well as buttons, and it turned out really nicely, and I will put up a side by side so that you could see. I'm really happy with how this came out. It was really frustrating, but I managed to do it and it was all okay. So that was how I did it. Like, subscribe, let me know if you want to see me make a video of how I make like the antlers, because I still need to make like the antlers and the whole headdress piece. So if you want a video and you want to see how I do that, tell me in the comments. and I will see you next time.